you slept well. Welcome to Tuesday. Going through a What is Armor Down series, and this will be part 2. So, yesterday we talked about Armor Down being a noun and a verb. So Armor Down is a company, has interests in the mindfulness space, the yogic space, the cannabis space, the self-care space. Spiritual spaces, community building. As a company, that's kind of what we do. But Armor Down is also practice. And the practice itself is centered around self-awareness and being aware of kind of the three component parts of the human experience: mind, body, and spirit. Today, I want to focus on what Armor Down is as self-care for warriors and servant leaders. So let's just break that down. Let's start with the target audience, the warrior and the servant leader. So I split the two. They're both kind of in a, what's the word I'm looking for? Archetypes. So the archetype of the warrior is the person willing to go into a kind of environment of uncertainty and bring the best version of themselves in order to support the greater good. Servant leader, you could call your veterans, your service members, your cops, your first responders. Those are all warriors. Servant leader is a person who is willing to put kind of others before themselves. And, my dad first introduced me to the topic, or to the idea of a servant leader. And for him, it was a very religious understanding. He said he's a lawyer. He's a lawyer. We were talking about, as a family, we were talking about kind of, what he wanted when he died. And he wasn't dying. This is just, we were going through a process of exploring the topic of death and dying and being prepared as a family for people's final wishes, which, it wasn't on my dad's side that it made so much difference, but on my mom, who died of ALS about 4 years later. But anyway, he said he wanted to be remembered as a servant leader. And I found that to be an interesting concept, because you would think a leader, well, that's the person that goes first. But a servant leader is someone who leads to give others the best chance that they have of getting to the places that they most want to go. And so a servant leader doesn't kind of lead from, a self-interested position. A servant leader leads from a kind of an other's position. So how do I serve others? And one way to do that is by serving them and leading them to the best versions of themselves. And so servant leader is by their very nature someone who puts kind of the betterment of others in high regard. And so the reason why Armor Down is specifically for the warrior and the servant leader is because one of the things that can happen when you put a whole bunch of emphasis on supporting the development of others is that you can often miss or become less attuned to the needs of yourself. And the problem with this is that it's not as sustainable as to be both. So it's more sustainable to understand yourself, self-care, and what you need to do to take care of yourself and support others than it is to just sacrifice yourself for the sake of others. Your own kind of internal world, your own self-care can offer invaluable wisdom, awareness, and skill that can be offered in your servant leadership to others. It It can be also offered in your warriorship on behalf of others. So the notion that there's a diminishment of your capabilities when you engage in self-care is something that we're slowly kind of working out of our culture. It's no longer the kind of predominant way of thinking where you just suck it up and drive on, sacrifice yourself, put the mission first, all that other kind of stuff. That had its time in its place, and it has its time and its place, but it's a incomplete understanding of things, and it leaves out a lot of things that really are helpful. So, what we do is, the way to practice this is how we'll go into the 4 bells now, make that shift, is how do you really develop a good self-care program? Well, the very first thing you need to understand how to do is recognize the aspects of yourself that need to be cared for. You have to kind of see that your whole self, it's holistic. Your whole self has to be cared for. And so the way we break it down at Armor Down is we break it down into 3 parts. We break it down into your mind, your body, and your spirit. And the way we care for those 3 parts is we tame and train the mind, and I'll explain that, and that's bell 1 and 2. We interact, we really participate with the way the body shows up, through sensation. We give the body space to communicate, and we give ourselves time to learn to listen, to learn to understand, to learn to process. But mostly we practice nurturing. We practice putting our attention on the body. And we do that by the sensations of different chunks of the body, but also by the way the body holds kind of the internal world. And the internal world shows up in infinite ways, but one way we can always reliably explore and study and learn about the inner world is by studying the breath. So mind and body really kind of take up bell 1, bell 2, and bell 3. That's kind of the mind-body realm. And then we get to bell 4, and bell 4 is the spiritual realm. So the spiritual realm is the space of the heart. It's the space of the absence of heart too, but it all centers around the heart. And the heart being the kind of the house of the spirit, or the house of the soul, or the house of the subtle energy. In all traditions, right, the heart has this really kind of significant place. And so 4th bell is the practice of gratitude and compassion. So gratitude, of course, is self-care. Your awareness of what grace has offered you in your life, your awareness of goals and dreams realized, your awareness of privilege, your awareness of your family, and your ability to articulate gratitude. I've interacted with hundreds of people who find expressions of gratitude or anything heartfelt, heck, even saying the word heart, is very difficult. And what that represents, and what we'll talk about tomorrow, is armor. And so in order to armor down, in order to break through those layers of armor that really disconnect you from self-care, it can protect self, but it also disconnects you from self-care. So it's kind of armor protection. Where it really, really hits hard is the heart. And so we practice gratitude to kind of open the heart back up and to get comfortable with just talking about this kind of stuff. Just talking about gratitude is a beginning. It's a great beginning. And then we move into the place of compassion. And compassion is an active engagement of awareness of others and awareness of others' sufferings, and recognizing their suffering inside yourself and offering your goodwill to them. And that's a mindful moment of compassion. So we look at that as kind of the highest form of kind of unselfishness, the highest form of kind of evolution, human evolution. The best version of ourselves are when we can see ourselves in the other and recognize that we're more alike than different, and that we can support each other no matter what's going on for us or for them. So that's where we try to go. Yesterday I was calling it Get to Big Love. You know, that's the space where love holds us all. So getting to that space and finding a way to spend more time there, engage with that space more open-heartedly, and that's really what gives life its oomph, its meaning, its sense of, oh wow, this is definitely worth being alive for. So I'll stop there. Let's go into the practice, and then we'll have a great rest of our day. So first things first, get comfortable. So cues for comfort. Now, this is an important part even for me right now. I've been sitting a particular way, and one of my right leg has been going numb, right? I've been kind of cutting off the blood flow to it. How I've been sitting, so I've been kind of going through a new way to figure out how to sit most comfortably, and I still haven't quite figured it out yet. So that's what I mean by following your cues. What makes you most comfortable? Find that spot, then slow down a little bit. Maybe just start to notice the room a little bit more, notice the speed of your body a little bit more. And then when you're ready, see if you can notice what's going on in your own head right now. Like what's on your mind? Maybe there's nothing, which is always nice. But just kind of notice where you are, what's going on, any emotion, any agitation, any thought, anything. Just kind of notice that. And then all you have to do to practice is just follow my guidance. So bring the mind into the present moment by focusing on your senses. So with your eyes, you can notice things like light and shadow. There's always aspects of light and shadow that you didn't notice. So it's worth just looking around the room, kind of noticing your space, noticing the way light and shadow plays about. And then when you feel like you've kind of explored the room, and for anyone who's experienced PTSD, or has PTSD, this is an opportunity to kind of explore for safety, make sure everything feels comfortable and safe. And then when that's the case, everything's predictable and you know that where you are is safe, maybe it's okay for you to close your eyes. Once you close your eyes, go straight into your sense of sound and, kind of double check what you looked for with your eyes. Double check that everything sounds predictable. Once safety is no longer a thing, think about curiosity. What do you hear? Where do you hear what you hear? Maybe you can even be aware of distance. You can tell how far away something is. Maybe you can hear the quiet of corners. You're going to move your attention, and when I say move, I mean it. I mean, you're really moving. These are little micro, subtle movements of your nervous system. You're going to move your attention now to your sense of touch. Maybe for you that shows up as temperature. Maybe it's the touch of the fabric of clothing on your skin. Maybe it's the touch of your eyelids being closed. Maybe it's the touch of the movement of fabric against your skin as you breathe. Now add an element of curiosity and see if you can feel the temperature difference between skin open to the air and skin covered by fabric of clothing. Let's move in a little bit closer. Notice your sense of smell. It doesn't matter if you smell anything or not. If you smell something, explore it, be curious about it. But if you don't smell anything, the real goal is the movement of attention, practicing moving attention. Now let's finish up with this bell by noticing your sense of taste, experience in the mouth. And we'll move on to bell 2. Notice your ground, what's beneath you. Notice kind of the layers of ground at your feet, ankles, rear end, lower back. Ground is wherever you're touching something. Notice kind of balance, pressure. Then move up and truly think about this. This is actual movement. When you move your attention, imagine electricity from your nerves, moving from studying your ground to now moving into your pelvis. You can visualize what you're actually doing. Imagine, in my mind, I see like yellow sparks moving from kind of the ground up into my pelvis, and they're kind of searching around, noticing what's there to be noticed. And this is changed throughout my practice. So, right now I notice kind of body weight, where my weight is centered. I'm a little bit leaning left. There's just a denser bit of sensation. That's information that I'm receiving. What I've noticed and what I want to point out is it's evolving over time. What I felt a month ago is different than what I was capable of feeling a month ago is different than what I'm capable of feeling now. So spend a little time in your pelvis, and you can kind of move. Like you can rock a little bit. If you don't feel much, you can rock a little bit. You can kind of stick your butt out. You can tuck your tailbone under, noticing the way feelings change. And from there, come up to your core space. There's always a lot to kind of be aware of in the core. You've got layers of musculature, you've got guts, you've got layers underneath your guts, you've got your psoas muscles, you've got all kinds of different things going on in the guts. And one of the things I'm always doing is just kind of checking to see if I've got any clenching going on. Clenching in the guts is something I'm often doing. So just see if there's any clenching, see if letting out feels good. See if there's any kind of reaching anywhere, any kind of compression anywhere. And then find a balanced lift. So not a lift like arching your back or anything, but if you imagined that your core was connected to your bottom ribs, and your bottom ribs kind of just lifted straight up, not arched back or anything, but just lifted straight up and just created a sense of tautness at your core. What would that feel like? Then travel up, get to the heart space. Now, heart space is just layer upon layer of awareness. So let's start with just the heart, right? So maybe you can visualize your heart inside your chest, maybe just slightly to the left of your chest bone. You can visualize the ribs around that. Now go to your shoulders. Feel the weight of your arms, your elbows. Now shoulder blades. And if you move your shoulder blades towards each other or move them around a little bit, see if you can feel how your shoulder blades, your shoulders, and your collarbones move. Just notice how all that kind of works together. Then rest them in a place that feels good, but connected to the pelvic core region too, so it's the torso. So find an uprightness in the torso. If you're laying down, just look for kind of a length, as much length as you can comfortably create. Then move to the throat space. It's always worth a swallow at the throat space just to feel the muscles of the throat. Noticing the front side of the throat, the skin of the front side of the throat, the skin of the back side of the throat, sides of the throat. Now see if you can notice air traveling up and down the throat. See if you can feel that. From the throat, travel to the top of the head. Get to the top of the head, get taller by 1 millimeter. Just imagine the entire spine. You're kind of saying to yourself, I have a spine, I have a back body. Imagine that whole back body, that whole spine, all the way up to the top, getting longer by 1 millimeter. Just feeling your whole spine reaching up through the tip top of your head, alert and relaxed. And then let's finish up by focusing on the face. So soften the forehead. Face is the only place in the body where your muscles connect straight to the skin. So it's right there. Now, underneath that is what's called the vagus nerve, which is your wandering nerve. That connects all the way to your heart and all the way up into your brain, and it has a big impact on how your body is operational. So if your face is all jammed up and angry and tense, it's sending signals to your nervous system. Maybe it's a protective signal. So just blank all that out by softening. No signal. So soften at the eyes, soften at the chin, cheeks, nose. Signal you're sending to the nervous system is empty. Nothing to see here. Nothing going on. Everything's fine. Green to green. And now just think of sending a kind of a signal of things are actually pretty good. So a small smile. Nothing crazy, but just like a little smile. Just imagine your nervous system is sitting there, just waiting to respond to whatever's going on. And send a little smile down there. Hold that little smile and we'll go on the third bell. So just notice where your breath is today. Just watch it. Where does it show up? It might even be worth your time to put your hand where you feel your breath moving at this very moment. Now, if you feel it high, you're going to move your breath low. So the next couple rounds of breath, get your breath into your belly. See if you can feel your belly moving as you breathe. If you feel your breath low, see if you can take it high. See if you can take your breath up into your chest. Feel it breathing up in the chest. Spend about 3 rounds of that. Let's change the speed of the breath. Make the breath super slow. Super slow inhale, super slow exhale. Let's change the speed. Now let's change the pathway. So breathe just through your mouth. Just breathe through your mouth. Slow and steady. In through the mouth, out through the mouth. Just notice that. Maybe you can notice how the temperature might change of the breath. I noticed when I started breathing in through my mouth, I felt the coldness of the air. Try combining it. Breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth. Do that 3 times. And just do 3 times in through the mouth, out through the nose. Let's finish up third bell with 3 really full, deep, slow, mindful breaths. So take 3 breaths and then we'll move into bell 4. What are you grateful for? What's the first thing that pops into your mind? Visualize it. See it. Nothing's popping into your mind. Get really local. Really local. Carrying a pocket knife? Are you wearing clothes? Grateful for that. Are you in a building? Be grateful for that. Do you have running water? Grateful for that. So if nothing shows up, get local. But whatever does show up, in your mind, talk about it. What are you grateful for? You could mouth it, but I would keep it in your mind. Keep it to yourself. There's lots of ways to do that. You could just say thank you over and over again. You could express why you're thankful. What you're so grateful for. And then once you've cultivated this kind of excess of gratitude, right? And just imagine it as your cup is filling, right? You got this bucket of goodwill and you've just filled it up. Now, imagine sending that goodwill to someone who's struggling. Let's focus it on an individual. One individual who's really struggling that you know that could use goodwill, that could use a boost. Imagine that same kind of electricity that's going through your body. Imagine that shooting out from your heart and moving at the speed of light to them. Same thing, talk in your mind. Coax the energy from your heart to that person. Why you're giving it to them. What you hope, how you hope it helps them. Be very active in your participation of sharing your goodwill with someone who's struggling. And we always finish intentionally, so take 2 breaths, and on the second exhale, you're done. All right, that's it. So, hope you can take this through your day, take this out through your day. So what you did currently is you nurtured your nervous system. Now think about it, your nervous system is automatic. It works automatically. So by nurturing it, you're giving it what it needs to be the best kind of nervous system that you could possibly have. And when it's operating fine, you can shift gears and move into different directions. You can be active for sports and things, or to make it to an appointment you're late to. But when you're there, you can settle down quickly and calmly. And then when you're with your loved ones and you feel safe, you can be open-hearted. And there's no kind of misfiring. You're not all fired up and protecting yourself in a space that's totally safe and wholesome. So, I hope you take this with you today. If you've got any questions about, if you're being if your nervous system is more armored, we'll talk about that more tomorrow. There's things that you can recognize, and there's things that you can do about it. And the main thing you can do is be aware of it, right? And start practicing. And so, I won't spend any more time this morning talking about this. So I just thank you for your attention. Appreciate spending time doing this with you. This is what makes this so kind of wonderful, is the fact that it can be shared. We practice together. So thank you for influencing my practice such a positive way. So see you on social media, or we'll see you tomorrow. Later.